I believe on this platform, we've got some of the best school leaders, principals, academic leaders, IT leaders, educators, and it's a very, very important session that's been put together by Arise and OpenAI. Arise stands for the Association for Reinventing School Education. It's an industry chamber body, and in partnership with FICCI, which is the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, is focused purely on the school education sector of India. Now, OpenAI is an organization, of course, that needs no introduction. It is synonymous with ChatGPT, which I think is now pretty much part of our everyday life. ChatGPT, of course, came to being in India. At least got to know about it in somewhere in the year 2022, but it ventured into serious education-related work in August 2025. And I remember being part of that launch, and two important announcements happened on that day. One, of course, was a tie-up with Arise, which, of course, we are all very, very proud of. And secondly, onboarding of Raghav Gupta as the head of education India and Asia Pacific at OpenAI. Raghav is on this call, and he brings over 2 decades of experience in education technology, consulting, and business growth across India and APAC. He's an MBA from INSEAD and has done his engineering from the DY Patil Vidyapeeth Pune. Now, Raghav, before joining OpenAI, has served as the managing director for India and Asia Pacific at Coursera. Coursera is again a pretty much known company for all those of you who have been in the education space. I'm sure you have heard of him. He's been instrumental in scaling the Coursera platform significantly in the region. Now, as the head of education in OpenAI, he will lead the integration of AI into education systems, working with schools, higher education institutions, and also government partners to support teacher upskilling, student learning, and research on AI in the classrooms. So I see an exciting afternoon ahead. Raghav is, of course, going to be introducing, the folks from his organization is going to be part of it today. And I now invite Raghav to take over the mic from me and set the context for today's meeting and kickstart for an exciting session ahead. However, before doing that, may I request all of you to keep your audio muted, but open your videos. I'm just keen that we do one digital capture of ourselves as a photograph for memory, and then I can hand over to Raghav. So Aditi, over to you to do that honors, please. Are we done, Aditi? Let me know when you're done, please.
Just give us 2 seconds.
Sure.
It's done now. We can start the session.
Okay,
Wonderful.
Raghav, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vinesh. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're as excited about this session as we are. You're seeing OpenAI Learning Accelerator on your screen, and let me quickly explain what that means. As Vinesh mentioned, we launched this in late August for India, and the OpenAI Learning Accelerator has 3 pieces. One, we are providing a lot of training to education leaders and practitioners so that they can effectively use ChatGPT in their work in education, and this session is a part of that. Second, we are providing access to our latest models. And many of you might have seen ChatGPT Go, which is the entry-level tier of ChatGPT, which so far costed 400 rupees per month, is available to everybody in India from today for free for 12 months. So that's the second thing that we're doing as a part of OpenAI Learning Accelerator. And third, by doing both of these, we are working with educators and education leaders in schools, in colleges, and universities to advance the use of AI and to guide faculty members and eventually to guide students as well into the right safe use of AI in education. Today's session is going to go till about 4:30. We are hoping it'll be interactive, and I'm really excited to introduce my colleague who's going to run this session, Sheg, who's based in our London office and is an international solutions engineering lead for education. So he does a lot of our work on education in the region, both in Asia, India, and Europe, and he's going to lead us through this. We'd love for this to be interactive. So as we go through the session, please share your questions in the chat. I'm seeing close to 450 people. So that's the most efficient way given the number of people who are joining us. We'll answer some questions in the chat itself and we'll take some of these live. And then towards the end of the session, I'm hoping we will ask some of you to unmute and just ask your questions live as well. And really looking forward to an exciting session. So with that, I'll hand over to Sheikh to take us ahead.
Thank you, Raghav. Just to be sure, can you all hear me well?
Yeah.
Raise hands,
Great, yeah.
reaction. Great. So awesome. Thanks for that great intro, Raghav. Really lovely to be here with all of you today. And I'm really, really looking forward to our session. Like Raghav said, my name is Shaik, and I have the pleasure of being the International Solutions Engineering Lead for Education at OpenAI. So with that in mind, obviously I'm not the only one shaping this program. Apart from me, who's going to be presenting to you today, we have a wider team that includes Raghav. The Arise team has done an incredible job so far with supporting these sessions and running them, as well as my colleagues Carlotta and Royston. So I want to take the time to thank the team for helping bring this to life for all of you today. Now, in terms of the content for today's session, we'll be going through ChatGPT and learning some foundational skills on how to best use ChatGPT if you're a new user. I'll be going through some skills on prompting, as well as customizing ChatGPT so that you can make good use of it, particularly in your role as educators. Towards the end of the session, I will be sharing some resources for you to continue on your learning journey as well. And if you have any questions and comments, as Raghav mentioned, I strongly encourage you to use the chat window to type them in. And I'll be taking pauses during the session to address questions as they come in live. And Raghav will be helping me with that as well. Now, before we go into the platform, I want to share a little bit more on what OpenAI does and why we exist. So the mission of OpenAI is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits everyone. And as you can imagine, education plays a huge part in humanity's existence and progress, past and future. So when a tool like ChatGPT was introduced to the world, it made AI accessible to everyone. And it's quite exciting for me that we've gone across countries, across generations, across almost every perceivable boundary. And people are able to access technology that is effectively enabling them to be super versions of themselves. And never has ever been a better time to be a learner or an educator. Now, this has also translated into life skills that are important in industry and in society. It's still early days, but the research here is compelling. As an example, professionals who are using ChatGPT at work, and that includes teachers, are getting more tasks completed. But more importantly, their individual abilities are now exceeding what they were capable of before. So if you had a weakness with storytelling, idea generation, creating applications, maybe even just drafting in a language that you're not comfortable with, we can now use tools like ChatGPT to go much faster and much further than what was previously possible. And I think in that vein, it's very important for us to also impart these skills onto the next generation of learners so that they're equipped with the skills as they enter the workforce or society in general. Now, with that background, let's go into ChatGPT itself. If you're on a device, a laptop, or if you have your phone next to you, which I'm hoping you do, you have the opportunity to open ChatGPT and also follow along. You're more than welcome to do so. If you don't have that opportunity, everything that we're going to be talking about today is recorded, so you can also catch up on this later if you want to practice these skills as well. So let's start chatting. I'm going to jump. Actually, before I even do that, let's just cover some of the things that ChatGPT can do. So obviously, we've all used it for different purposes and needs. But with ChatGPT, you have the ability to not just learn and ask basic questions, but go beyond that. And the capabilities are enormous. So you've got the ability to analyze data, to create images, to do deep research, to write creatively and professionally, to build applications, to organize information, to read and share, and to automate processes. And so these possibilities are ever growing. Even Raghav and I working at OpenAI, it's hard for us to keep track of what's coming every single week, and we do release new features every week. So I think it's important for me to highlight that for you to really be able to leverage this platform to the fullest, you need to take a stock of what this tool is capable of and experiment with it and see how it can play a role in your own lives. And with that in mind, I'm going to switch to ChatGPT, and we're going to cover some of the more common and advanced use cases here. So I'm going to share a new tab here. And I'm going to be in my platform. And first things first, obviously, you can use ChatGPT for brainstorming, right? So this is a very common use case. We've seen this done, over and over and over again, especially for first-time users. ChatGPT is great for brainstorming and idea generation, and it's a great thought partner, right? So let's say if I come and ask it to give me creative classroom and grade level ideas for celebrating our school's annual day with my students. If I click send, ChatGPT comes back to me with some creative themes, right? So threads of time, the world we imagine, voices of change, and it suggests different classroom level activities like the mini museum or student-led performances that I can now incorporate into my school setting, academic setting. And obviously, this is just one way of brainstorming with ChatGPT, but you can also, apart from just invoking its own knowledge, use other tools in its toolkit to provide even more context that may be relevant here, right? So, for example, apart from just asking things, I can also upload documents and ask questions on those documents. So within my toolkit, I can click on Add Photos and Files, and I'm going to upload a document here that is essentially a monthly administrative report that I want to extract information from and analyze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to explain the main issues that need attention in my school and suggest action steps. So if I click send, ChatGPT parses that document, and Clarence High School is a fictional school for the purpose of this training, and it creates a clear summary of the main issues that were highlighted in that document. So we see that, academic performance and attendance are a few of them. We have maybe, behavior and discipline and staff morale. But all of this, you can imagine if I'm working with hundreds and hundreds of pages, will be very difficult for me to synthesize and analyze myself. So ChatGPT is really great for helping facilitate that and accelerate bringing those insights out of these documents. In the educational context, you can obviously use it to create learning materials on your curriculum or syllabus. And also just to, maybe like create mock quizzes or assessments on some learning content that may be one or two documents. With the upload capability, you can attach up to 10 different files within the same chat interface and take analysis on those files. So you can really get creative and bring a lot of sources of data into your ChatGPT. Now, let's take this further a little bit. What if I want to write an email summary I can send to my teachers and colleagues, highlighting key points from this document? If I click send, you'll see that ChatGPT starts generating that email for me, right? And it looks like sort of a different UI, user interface here. It's in a text box, and I can copy this email, or I can click on open in email, and this will just open it in my mailing application. If you're using one on your laptop, which means that don't necessarily have to copy paste it over. But apart from that, I can also now go ahead and make changes to this, right? So maybe this is a little bit too detailed. Maybe I don't want to include any detail in November priorities. So I can actually edit this live within the same UI. And again, if I'm not happy with this, apart from manual edits, I can come back to ChatGPT and ask it to restructure this or reformat this, right? So let's say remove the section on facilities. You'll see that ChatGPT will start recreating that email and taking that feedback into account. So now I don't have that bullet point on facilities that I had earlier. And this maybe looks a lot more aligned with what I would want to send out. Now, obviously, with ChatGPT, a lot of the times we use it for writing, but it is very, very multimodal. You're not constricted to just text here. You can also engage with ChatGPT using voice mode and dictation. So if I open up a new chat here, and this is good practice, by the way, if you're doing different things within ChatGPT, use different conversations to keep your context clean. And I'm going to use our dictate action here to first show you what you can do with this, right? So, hi, chat. I am going to travel to Mumbai next week, and I'd like to know the weather forecast. Could you help me, please? So the way that our dictation feature works is it basically transcribes what I'm saying and allows me to just very quickly get it into text before I can send this out. So let's say if you're just really dumping your thoughts in ChatGPT and you're not very structured in your thinking and you're just sort of explaining your running train of thought, you can still, you leverage features like dictation to then bring structure to these thoughts and make sure that you can still get them out into your prompt box and into your ChatGPT, right? So now that I have this, maybe again, I'm on the run, I don't necessarily have time to read this. I can actually ask ChatGPT to read this aloud for me using this feature.
Weather for Mumbai, India. Current conditions, partly sunny, 86 degrees, 30 degrees. Daily forecast, Tuesday, November 4.
So this is one way of doing it, but I can also invoke what we call advanced voice mode to engage in a similar conversation, right? Hi, chat. Can you actually tell me what the weather is going to be like? And maybe also look at other activities that I could do in Mumbai while I'm there.
Absolutely. So just to sum up the weather part first, next week in Mumbai, you can expect warm temperatures around the upper 20s to low 30s Celsius, a bit of humidity and a mix of sunshine with a chance of some showers early in the week. And like I mentioned, there might be a hazy day or two, so just keep that in mind.
Great. So you see it acts slightly differently to dictation. It's more of just having really a voice partner and having ChatGPT be a lot more conversational. But an important feature to highlight here is whenever I speak to chat using voice mode, all of that context still gets transcribed into my conversation. So I can always come back to it and see what my outputs were. So you see here, everything that chat said to me earlier, again, gets transcribed here. So I don't lose that context if I then move into different conversations or have to leave my ChatGPT interface. and I can come back and continue the conversation from this point, and ChatGPT will be able to sort of seamlessly do that as well. Now, obviously, we don't necessarily always talk about weather and traveling with these kinds of features. Sometimes, we want to use them for more educational context. You can imagine bringing features like voice mode into your classroom settings as simulation partners, right? So let's try this thing. Hi, chat. I'm going to be practicing, history of India, and I want you to help me out. Maybe you can ask me questions, and I can respond to these questions.
Absolutely, Sheikh. We can do that. I'll throw some questions at you about Indian history, and you can answer them. We'll just treat it like a bit of a quiz. Let's get started.
Great. Start with the first question, but maybe can you speak in rhyme only? I digest that a little bit better.
Absolutely. I can rhyme it up a bit. Let's give this a try and see how it fit. Here's your first question, wrapped up in a rhyme. Who was known as the Mauryan king of his time?
Actually, can you now speak in Hinglish, sort of the mix of Hindi and English, just because that's a lot better for me than just English?
बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. अब मैं हिंदी और इंग्लिश को मिक्स करके बात करूंगा. तो चलो अगला सवाल इंग्लिश स्टाइल में पूछते हैं. वो कौन सा मौर्यन?
Great. So you see here that we actually can do a lot of different things with advanced voice mode. And once again, all of this gets transcribed here, and I can always refer back to this. With regard to the last bit there, we obviously want to make sure that ChatGPT is accessible to everyone, and we support over 97% of the of the world's internet population. So that means you can essentially speak, I believe, 12 different dialects, just with regards to India. Whether you want to type it in or use voice mode, those languages are supported to make sure that students and teachers alike get equitable access to our technology. Awesome. So we've covered some of the more sort of like multimodal ways of engaging with ChatGPT. Now let's take a look at some of the more advanced capabilities that some of you may or may not be familiar with, right? So I'm gonna switch tabs here. So we read files, we spoke with ChatGPT voice. What I want to do next is talk a little bit about prompting before we dive into the advanced features. And the term that some of you may have heard is called prompt engineering. And obviously, anytime the word engineering is put next to another word, it can make it seem more complex than it might be. And so I want to break it down in language that you can all understand. Prompt engineering is essentially the craft of putting together an ask or a question or a task to get the most effective output that addresses what you're trying to find from ChatGPT. Simply put, it's essentially a way of structuring your thoughts and chats into something that is going to be really, really high value. The basic premise of prompt engineering is that the models that serve responses to you in ChatGPT are trained in certain ways, where you can get better responses if you provide input of a certain kind. The fundamentals of any good prompt should have these three things. They should have the tasks that you're trying to achieve, the context of who you are and what you're trying to get, and the expectation of the output you're seeking. Now, it's not mandatory for you to enter these three things into a prompt. However, you might find that the quality of outputs may be better if you do incorporate these things in. Now, another principle that's also very helpful for you to keep in mind is prompting is not necessarily a once and done activity. Sometimes you might find that the response that has come back doesn't quite satisfy or meet what you're trying to get. And that's okay. That happens. The activity that you need to get better at is iterating on your prompt and clarifying it. And quite often, you can use the analogy of conversing with somebody else, another human being, in terms of how you can iterate. So just like, when you ask a student a question and they don't quite give a clear answer or understand, what you're trying to get out of them, you have to follow up with a different question. And so in prompting, there's a lot of that follow-up activity to make sure that you get the most out of the platform. And as you get better and more skilled at using ChatGPT and any AI technology in general, you will also learn different prompting approaches and understand what works and what doesn't work. So if we go to sort of, prompting and, apart from experimenting and iterating, you may not necessarily know how to prompt different features. That's also fine. You can speak to ChatGPT and ask it to help you write good prompts, right? And this is probably my top tip for the day. Use ChatGPT to help improve your prompting. And this concept we call meta prompting. It's essentially using AI to help interact with AI. So I'm going to jump into my platform window here again. And just to, showcase what I mean by this, let's say I am a biology teacher in grade 7 in India, right? I want to get a list of ideas that I can use to help my students learn photosynthesis in a more engaged way. Please provide a bullet list. Right, so here I am applying those 3 things that we discussed just now. I'm giving it context, right? I'm giving it context that I'm a biology teacher, and I teach for grade 7. What I want to get out of this, which is a list, and how I want the response structured, which is also a list, right? So if I don't like what I'm getting here, I have 2 different ways of engaging with the platform. I can either ask something again, or I can go back to my previous prompt and edit the message. And maybe instead of providing a list, a table with 2 columns, idea and details, and send this out. You'll see here that now I can actually switch between my previous version of the response and current version of the response. And now the output is different, right? Now it looks like a table. It has the idea and the details of that idea. So this is great. But this is a great example of also showing that prompts do matter. And whatever you do ask in ChatGPT, the better detail you can provide, the more context you can provide, you'll get a much better output. But you'll be building this as muscle memory as you experiment with the platform. Now, let's jump into some of the cooler features that I want to showcase here. So far, we've been interacting with ChatGPT just in the mainline chat, but we have a really useful feature that a lot of you may find very, very helpful for your work, which is called deep research. And deep research is essentially our first agentic capability that leverages higher reasoning models under the hood to provide a response. So let's say if I want to understand the long-term benefits of teaching coding and robotics in Indian high schools and get affordable strategies I can use to start a small classroom program, if I invoke deep research and send this prompt, you'll immediately notice that ChatGPT behaves differently. It comes back with more questions and tries to help me scope that down a little bit, right? So it's asking if I'm interested in benefits primarily for students, or schools or society. If I want the strategies to focus on a specific type of school, government, private, rural, urban, what kind of budget should be considered, and what do I want my recommendations aligned with Indian education policies, right? So I can now come back and either respond to these questions, or for the purpose of the demo, I can say use your best judgment. Obviously, you will actually respond to and provide more scope. But once I respond, ChatGPT kicks off that research. And this usually takes a bit of time. This can take from 10 to 15 minutes. But the output essentially is going to be a very, very detailed and extensive report. And I'm going to jump into a similar conversation that I had yesterday, in preparation for this meeting. I asked the same prompt, right? Got the same scoping questions back. And then you see here that ChatGPT worked for 8 minutes, ran 73 different searches, and pulled 25 different direct sources to produce this very extensive report with inline citations on the topic that I asked for. If I click on the sources tab here, I can see that it actually looked at various sources. And within the activity section, I can also see its chain of reasoning or chain of thought, what we call. And this is essentially the deep researcher's thoughts as it goes about the research, right? So you see that it's digging into robotics importance, maybe like searches for new things, and then finds new facts from these sources that then direct the next steps for it. So here I can just really trace how deep research goes about the task. And this allows me to maybe like validate or explain some of the findings that come across. Now, this is very, very extensive. For me, this would probably take hours, if not days of work, but this was completed in 8 minutes. I can then go ahead and download this report, either as a PDF or Word document, right? I can also share the link to this report with other people, and they will be able to see this report as well. If they have ChatGPT accounts, so you could send it to your colleagues and peers, and even students or parents. And this is a great way of, again, invoking some of the deeper and higher reasoning capabilities. Now, obviously, we covered quite a lot of ground. So I'm going to pause here and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, Sheikh. So I think there are a couple of good questions that will be helpful to take at this stage. One is around voice mode, which you showed us. There's a clarification on that. The other is around hallucinations. On voice mode, if you could just share again what languages other than English are available from an Indian context, and does it work on a mobile device as well?
Yeah, of course. So let's start with voice mode. Voice mode essentially just uses our underlying models to provide responses, but in a voice output, right? So in terms of language coverage, I won't be able to remember every language, and I apologize for that. But these are the more common dialects that you have in India. So Hindi, Gujarati, there maybe some of the others. But I believe this covers 12 different dialects, if not more. Our models do constantly get improvements and updates, and we do have a very strong, employee base coming from India that help make this as useful as possible for you guys. So that this will expand and improve even further. But essentially speaking, we have, I think, over 100 different languages that we cover apart from that. So the more common languages. And if you teach other languages like Spanish or, Turkish or Russian or, even Arabic, all of these languages you can bring into ChatGPT and create content around. And the second question around hallucinations. Despite decent prompts, we often experience hallucinations from ChatGPT. How do we mitigate that? So this is a great question because hallucinations do come about, and that's because large language models that power ChatGPT are probabilistic tools. They're not exact tools, right? The way that they work is they essentially do a lot of mathematical formula in the background, predict probabilities, and output responses with respect to the highest probability. That means that whenever you ask the same question, you can get different versions of the output, right? So I'm going to go back to the example that I had earlier on creative classroom and grade level ideas, right? So if I now open a new chat and ask the same question, I'm going to get a different response. So this is my response number 1, and this is my response number 2. Again, this is because these are probabilistic tools and they're not going to be giving you the exact same answer every time. Hallucinations arise when these tools don't have enough context or data to provide the response, and they tend to make things up because they're programmed to be as helpful as possible. So instead of just being honest and saying, I think Sudeshna, you asked this question. Listen, Sudeshna, I don't know the answer to that. It can sometimes come up with that answer just so that it can help you because it's just trying to be helpful. The way you reduce hallucinations is through prompting. So you can include things like don't make up any facts, or stick to this specific PDF document that I'm uploading and don't invent new things or infer things. And that way models actually do align better to that. And I will also note that with our GPT-5 model, which is our latest and most capable model to date, we have reduced hallucination rates quite significantly. And so that has come down to like 10% in general and from 0 to 5% in controlled settings. And by controlled settings, I mean essentially what I was saying earlier. You just instruct the models and provide them with very specific knowledge and ask them to not go beyond that. I hope that answers the question.
Sheikh, there's a related question as well that might be helpful to take from Neelam Singh, which is ChatGPT gives wrong answers to math problems as well. How does one kind of think of that, and is this a drawback?
So again, this can happen. I'm sure all of you have seen that example of like how many R's are in the word strawberry, and it says 3 or 4 sometimes. That's definitely not how many you have in there. Again, goes back to the idea that these tools are probabilistic and they are not good at math. What is good at math is code, right? So for example, and I'm gonna actually pull out maybe some data here. And we're gonna go into some data analysis features so I can showcase this a little bit better. Surface best insights from this data, right? So this is a data set that I created. And what I want to show here is whenever I ask ChatGPT to do mathematical or computational things, it actually invokes coding capabilities to do those tasks. So it goes ahead, analyzes the data set, writes formulas, right? And maybe transforms this data to bring out what I want to see. And because it's not relying on the large language models, but on the coding capabilities that are under the hood, it's able to actually do these mathematical questions and get the right responses. And then the models are used to output these responses, not do the maths themselves. So this is how you would get better answers to math-related questions. You can always ask ChatGPT to invoke coding or use coding to respond to these questions. And this works really, really well because we have seen, these models applied in very complex research grade settings, and they're doing, very complex math in different life sciences and mathematical sciences, axiomatic and non-axiomatic fields. So this is possible, but obviously, uncovering what works and what doesn't comes with an understanding of the technology. And I'm really glad that you're asking these questions because I can explain how this technology works better.
Great. Do you want to take one more, which I think is a pertinent topical question, and then maybe go back to your plan?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So from Nishchint, teachers are using ChatGPT, but students are as well. And, how do we think about students using ChatGPT to answer assignments? And are they still building their thinking and logical skills to respond? I'm summarizing, but you have the gist of the question.
Yeah, I can see the question in the chat. So I think the strategies here can be really, really different, right? First and foremost, the reason we engage with networks like Arise, the reason we do these trainings is for you to understand how you can use this technology, but also how you can instruct your students to use this technology, because they will use it one way or another, right? They already use it. ChatGPT is really, really popular in India. And it's a matter of really having that transparency and being able to guide your students to leverage the platform well versus just use it as a cheating device of some sort. To that note, though, we're obviously making a lot of changes to the platform to make sure that it's adapted to learning. And one feature that we've created specifically for India, actually, and this was created by Abby, who is from India and who is our product manager for this, called Study Mode. And Study Mode helps with these questions. Instead of sort of like giving very quick answers, it uses Socratic principles of teaching to really build, and scaffold understanding of topics. So let's go back to an example I used earlier. When I was in high school, I really struggled with biology and biological topics, right? So if I ask Study Mode to explain photosynthesis to me, right, you're going to see here that it behaves slightly differently to your main chat. First and foremost, before it even gives me the response, it asks me to level set. What am I studying this for, right? Have I learned this in the science class? And do I know any of the words that are given here? Just for you to have a better understanding of how this works. If I ask the same question without Study Mode, right, it essentially immediately goes into answering the question, which is not necessarily useful, right? And it gives me like really complex formulas. Maybe I don't even know chemistry at this point, and I'm learning this in a much lower grade. This is not really useful for me. And Study Mode addresses specifically that. So first, it level sets and scaffolds my understanding. So I can say I am studying this for, I don't know, let's say grade 6 science class. I don't know any of those concepts well. I am actually more of a sports guy, very bad at science. Although some of you will probably disagree with that, given that we work at OpenAI and science is what we do. But you'll see here now I've come back. And again, instead of giving me the concept of photosynthesis immediately, Study Mode still builds up that understanding, right? It says, let's start with something familiar. Imagine a tree as a kind of food factory, right? Instead of eating like animals do, the trees make its own food using sunlight. And this happens with every prompt that I'm going to be doing here. Study Mode actually asks me a guiding question or a knowledge check to make sure I understand the topic well. And this is, again, how it scaffolds that understanding. So it's asking me if I think the tree might need its surroundings to make its own food. I guess yes. But again, I'm really bad at science. Could we tie this to cricket, maybe, right? Cricket is really popular in India. But what I want to show you here is that Study Mode also personalizes outputs to me and helps me maybe like relate them to concepts that I'm more familiar with. And suddenly maybe photosynthesis is not as abstract, right? So it equates the sun to the stadium lights, the water to the energy drink, right? The carbon dioxide to the bulb that I need to hit. And once again, you'll see that it asks me a knowledge question. It sort of scaffolds that understanding, doesn't just give me the answer straight away. So this is how we created study mode, coming back to the question of making sure that students use this wisely. This is one way of interacting with the platform. But obviously, these things are not necessarily things that all students use to get quick answers. And there's a lot of different features that we're going to cover that will also be useful to help them promote those learning outcomes. Great. On that note, I'm going to actually jump back into my demo flow. And then what I want to show you next is how you can actually branch, right? So earlier today, I covered so by the way, this is a new report that I kickstarted earlier just during this demo. And again, you see that ChatGPT worked here for quite a bit of time, looked at 21 different sources and output this beautiful report. Now I have this looks great. One thing I want to highlight is the new branching feature, right? Sometimes when we do produce these high quality reports, we may want to do different things with them. Maybe I want to dive deeper into the report and create assessments based off of it. Or maybe I want to create, summaries of the report and then create communications for my colleagues, maybe emails or some one-pagers that I can send out. These are two different tasks that I may not necessarily want to mix together in the same conversation. So this branching feature allows me to create the output that I have and then take one direction with it. And then if I come back to the original chat, I can branch out again and take a different direction with it. So this is really, really useful if you want to do different things with a really great output, right? So you see this is now branched from the conversation. So for instance, I can go ahead and say something like summarize this in one quick paragraph. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just use very, very simple prompt here, just so you can see that, I can take this really extensive report and still do follow-up analysis on it. And then if I come back to my report here, right, this is still the same report. I can take a different action through a different branch. We've covered sort of some features. What I want to showcase you next is how you can customize ChatGPT. So far, I've been giving ChatGPT a lot of prompts, a lot of context on who I am, what I want to do. You may not necessarily want to do that every single time, right? Sometimes it's easier to just upload that somewhere and have ChatGPT remember who you are and what you do. And we do obviously have that functionality. So jumping back into the platform, if you click on your account and then personalization settings, you can actually now start customizing ChatGPT to better fit, what you use it for. So I can define my base style and tone, right? Maybe I want it to be more cynic or more of a listener type. I can add custom instructions. I can ask it to be chatty. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more direct instead, empathetic. So I can really add as many as I want, or I can add my own custom set of instructions here. And these are the ones that we created for the purpose of this demo, right? So provide clear, practical, structured guidance tailored to a high school teacher, use supportive, positive, and classroom-focused tone. And I'm going to send these in the chat so you can also leverage them for your custom instructions if necessary. And then if I scroll further down, you'll see there's an About Me section where I can define my nickname, my occupation, and more about what I do. So here I can provide even more context and have ChatGPT remember these things. Why is this important? So when I define that my occupation is a high school teacher, and I can say, a biology teacher, or make that even more specific, like a grade 9 biology teacher, every time I interact with ChatGPT, it's going to have that information in the back of its head, and it's going to provide more tailored outputs that are going to be more relevant to me. For example, with the output on classroom activities, if you're a teacher, or if you're a school principal, or if you're an engagement manager, you may be looking for different things from these prompts. And having this context helps ChatGPT get to those needs faster without you having to explicitly say them every single time. So this is really, really useful, right? And I'm gonna now also toggle saved memories, and we're going to cover memories in just a sec. And there you'll see there's a toggle of referencing chat history. So this essentially gives ChatGPT ability to look at all of my previous conversations when responding and take them into account. And this is really, really useful if, let's say, you've been using ChatGPT for a specific task, and then a month later you've already forgotten what that was. So you can always come back and ask ChatGPT, hey, we were working on this task. What were, the outcomes of that? And it will be able to look that up, reference that, and help you remember. Great. I'm going to save this, right? And then we're going to jump into a different way of organizing and customizing your work. A tool that we call projects. So far I've been speaking to ChatGPT ad hoc, asking all of these things in new conversations. But sometimes I want to be a little bit more organized, right? So I want to maybe create a project for a very specific type of work, and use that project to keep my conversations structured. So let's say I'm teaching class 5A, right? And I want to create a project specifically for that class. And within this project, now that it's defined here, I can actually maybe edit project, and we can maybe add like a more fun logo here. I can now add different things to this. So first and foremost, I can add instructions. So instructions act as another layer of customization that defines how ChatGPT responds specifically in this project. So let's say I'm going to be using this project to help write emails to recap what the students learn every week based on the documents that I upload. And I want ChatGPT to use a formal tone of voice as I'll send these emails to parents. So once I save this as my instruction set, ChatGPT will always have this as a guiding principle of how it will be responding. So again, if I go to my instructions, you'll see that these are now saved here, right? I can also add files, and these files act as knowledge reference. And to the question that we had earlier, around hallucinations and, how can I make sure that ChatGPT provides the responses that are very, very specific. Let's say if my instruction said only, provide the knowledge that, or like reference the knowledge that you have in your instructions and in your knowledge set, I will be able to define that further. Now I uploaded 2 documents here. They are named the same, but they're 2 different documents. And then these documents cover some of the content that we learned in 2 classes. Now you'll see here, now that I want to start a new chat, maybe I can ask ChatGPT to write the email based on the 3rd week program. So this 3rd week program is captured in these documents. You'll notice that I don't have to upload any more files here. If I just prompt ChatGPT with this, it's going to reference those project files. It's going to look in the instruction set, and then it's going to produce the output. And you see the output is an email, just as I told it. to do. And then it's referencing the two documents, one for the history class and one for the philosophy class, and what we learned in those classes over the past week. So this is really, really good. You see here how I can now sort of scale a lot of my workflows and do a lot of the things in a much more easy manner without having to necessarily give a lot of prompting to ChatGPT. More so than that, I can actually set tasks. So this is sort of a way of organizing your responses and keeping things focused. I actually want to highlight that you can always move conversations into the project. Let's say if I want to move some of my photosynthesis conversations from earlier into here and maybe like drag my other tools here. I'm going to refresh the page. You see now these conversations are also here. So I can bring new conversations in here. Don't necessarily always have to start them in the project. And I can also set tasks, right? So let's try a new thing. I'm going to set a task for, let's actually do it for Wednesday, 10 a.m. to recap past week's K-12 education news in India with links and one actionable next step. So if I click enter here, this looks like a regular prompt to you, but you'll see that ChatGPT actually creates a task because I asked it to. And if I expand this task, it has a name, it has the instructions, which is the prompt that I gave it, and then it has the task sort of timeline trigger. So I can set this to be weekly every Wednesday at 10, which is exactly what my prompt asked to do. But I can, define this manually. I can make it daily, monthly, annually, right? And choose any specific day or time that I want. So you can imagine if you're doing sort of repeatable tasks, maybe every morning before coming to work, you're actually looking at ways that teachers in India are using AI to improve their classroom engagement and teaching. You can set these and run these automatically without having to come into ChatGPT every morning and running the prompt yourself. So just so that you can also keep track of these, you can allow desktop notifications here. So whenever a task runs, you'll get a notification. And just so you know how this is going to look like, I'm going to actually run this task, and you'll see that ChatGPT invokes web search to look for those K-12 education news. And this is what I'm getting, right? So the AI and computational thinking curriculum rollout, digital payment push for school fee collection. And these are referenced sources with inline citations. So the outputs might look something like this. And I expect that tomorrow's output at 10 a.m. will come back with something very similar. And once I have these outputs, I can always move them into a specific project and keep them organized. Great. I'm going to pause here again. Any questions?
Quite a few, Sheg. I've summarized some of these. Let me pose these to you. There was a couple of questions some time back, which I think it's helpful to take them now for broader benefit as well. I think there was a question from Chirag about if you use the information given by ChatGPT directly, does it count as plagiarism? And there was another question from Sonia ji about what is the authenticity of answers given by ChatGPT. Just two broad level questions I think will be helpful for everyone to hear the response.
So I can provide my opinion on the first one. Obviously, when students leverage these tools, whether it counts as plagiarism is first of all, defined by your school's policy. We've seen schools actually allow the use of ChatGPT as long as students reference it and approach the outputs critically, right? So they don't just take whatever the chat is saying for granted, but they, break it down, maybe look up more information to make sure that this is valid, maybe supplemented with additional sources of data that ChatGPT is not referencing. So you can think about this very, very, differently across different schools. And that will primarily define whether that's plagiarism or whether you want to encourage how students use this. One particular example that I love is we've seen teachers ask students, once they use ChatGPT to help them with these tasks, to actually, look at prompts and how they've created these prompts and why they created these prompts the way that they did. So going back to what I was teaching you earlier about prompt engineering, this way you can make sure that students are leveraging the platform while also understanding that this is not just like a perfect 100% exact tool. This is AI, and these are the benefits of using these tools, but there are also some risks and challenges that come with it. And this way you're preparing them for the future versus just straight up saying you can't use AI, and that way students are just going to use it without your knowledge. And that doesn't help anyone. So that's my personal opinion on that. And then I think the second question was around like accuracy.
Yeah, authenticity of answers or accuracy, I would imagine, from Sonia Kocher.
Yeah. So again, like we've shown you how you can supplement files, how you can run deep research, how you can run live web search. So all of these different tools allow you to bring context to the platform to help shape whether the responses are aligned with what you expect or not. So you can actually upload, if let's say you have a curriculum, right? And we did an example earlier with photosynthesis. I didn't upload anything, and ChatGPT was using its own model knowledge to provide the answers on that topic. But if you have a very specific curriculum and you want to get answers based on that curriculum, you can just upload it as a file and ask ChatGPT to use it to ground the answers. And you can advise students to do the same. And this applies to really anything where you want the responses to be aligned. Just give it more context. And again, going back to our projects, let's say if you're working with class 5A and you have a very specific curriculum on biology and you want to create assessments based on that curriculum, instead of every single time uploading that as a file, you can just upload it once to your to your knowledge set. And then whenever you reference or like ask to create assessments, ChatGPT will reference that file. So that's one way of keeping the authenticity alignment of responses.
Should we take one more, Sheikh, before you go back to your planned demo? So I'm synthesizing a couple of questions. There was a question around how can we use this effectively for high school math students from Rupesh, and then also from Madhuji about she's a Hindi teacher in a CBSE school taking senior classes, and how can ChatGPT help with Hindi classes? And I think the context is that sometimes the answers are not factual from an Indian context and an Indian culture standpoint, might be related to model training, but if you could comment on both of those.
Yeah. I think that probably both of these questions we can cover with custom GPTs. Because they will address different parts of these questions. So I want to tackle that, and then GPTs or custom GPTs are essentially tailored versions of ChatGPT that allow you to address these specific concerns, right? Making sure that something is aligned with your curriculum, making sure that maybe your ChatGPT supports math students the way that it's supposed to, right? So you can create many different versions of custom GPTs for different purposes and classrooms and grades, and have them be those tailored versions of the AI that will support the specific outcomes you want, right? So I navigated to my GPTs tab here. You see here, these are GPTs that are featured and trending, but top right hand corner, I have a create button where I can actually create my own GPT. And let's take an example of maybe the, was it Hindu, right?
Yeah, in Hindi.
Yeah. And what was the context of that again, Raghav?
One, how well it functions in Hindi, and second, a lot of the examples need to be relevant and correct from an Indian context standpoint, whether culturally or historically. So there are two parts to that question, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So you see here that I have two tabs. I have my creation tab, my configuration tab for the GPT. I'm not going to go into detail here just yet, but if I come back to my creation tab, I can essentially describe what I'm trying to create, and ChatGPT will adapt the configuration tab accordingly. So I'm creating a GPT that supports students with Hindi. I want it to be aligned with our curriculum, right? And let's say I actually also upload some curriculum document here that will allow me to define that even further, right? So let's say if I want to supplement this syllabus, right? And maybe let's make this a bit more fun. Let's support students with Hindi in a history class. So you can see how this can be really, really tailored, right? Hindi in a history class by taking on the persona of a famous historical figure and responding in the voice of that persona. I want it to be aligned with the attached curriculum, and this attached curriculum details some of the historical figures that we're going to be covering in class, right? Do not do anything else. This GPT is strictly for the purpose outlined above. Again, I'm going to keep it very simple. Obviously, you can add as much context as you want here, but let's go ahead and submit this prompt. You see here, ChatGPT now updates my GPT, right? So it's now updating those fields in the configuration tab. And if I come back here, you'll see here that now it has a description, which takes on a voice of a historical figure to teach history in Hindi, right? The instructions outline some of the content that I provided. So this GPT aligns with the attached curriculum, and this is a reference to the knowledge file that I uploaded. This GPT always maintains historical authenticity in tone and perspective while promoting curiosity, understanding, and respect for cultural and historical context. This is a very simple set of instructions. I will say best practice is to make this as detailed as you want it to be. And you can add sort of restrictions. You can add guardrails. You can add very specific expectations for tone and engagement. So this can be really, really detailed, but let's leave it at this, right? You see there's some conversation starters. The knowledge, the syllabus that I uploaded into my chat earlier is now actually captured in the knowledge set. And I can now come and test this out. So I can ask, and again, sorry, I can't read Hindi, but I can ask this question, which I presumably tells me, take on a role, and maybe like you respond in that role or tone of that role. And this comes back to me with the response. Now, for those of you who can read this, I hope that this makes it easier for you to understand how we can actually use this in very different settings and to also support with multilingual learning. If you want this to be different, if you want to adapt this even further, I can go back to my creation tab, give it more, prompts and follow-ups. And really define this further. If I'm happy with this, I can name this. Let's say it did provide the name. Let's say let's use that name. And you'll see here now, once again, ChatGPT will adapt that for me and actually even generate a profile picture using our image generation capabilities. And once I have sort of all the fields filled out and ready to go, right? So I have my name here now. I can now create this and I can share this with my students. So, they can leverage this in their learning. I can share it with my colleagues if it's GPT for more teaching workflows rather than student-facing activities. And I can also just keep it for my own use, right? If I'm creating assignments or quizzes and doing, all of these different academic tasks, and I've created GPTs for those tasks, I can always just save them for myself and access them from my own GPT library. Now, so hopefully this sort of comes back to the questions that were asked around supporting specific needs or specific subjects and making sure that, again, our responses are aligned. Custom GPT is a great way of doing this because you can define the context, you can define instructions, you can upload knowledge, and this, again, grounds ChatGPT and really creates a very tailored version of it that you can use instead of the mainline chat. Great. I'm gonna jump into let's save this, into our platform again and cover some of the other capabilities that may be relevant to you, starting with writing. So this has been published, so now I can use this, and this is now saved in my sidebar. But let's come back to writing, right? So a lot of you use ChatGPT for creating assessments, again, quizzes and writing tasks. We have a feature called Canvas, which is different from Canvas, the learning management system. It's essentially a collaborative space within ChatGPT that allows you to co-create material with AI. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to create a Canvas document that outlines a 4-week unit plan for my geography high school class. Include learning targets, weekly topics, lesson ideas, and other information here. Make it clear, practical, and easy to follow. So if I click here, you'll see now ChatGPT generates what looks like a document. And I can actually edit this document. If I click on edit, it now creates this in a different sort of user interface. This looks like any document interface that I might be accustomed to, whether that's Microsoft Word or Google Documents. And again, this is drafting its content live, but once it finishes drafting the content of this, I can actually start making changes to this either manually or with the use of AI. So I still have my chatbot on the left-hand side, but let's say, now that I have this and this, outlines all the activities for the 4 weeks, maybe I don't want some parts of this, right? Maybe the teacher reflection prompts are not something that I'm going to be using, and maybe even this part I don't necessarily need. So I can delete these parts manually. Maybe the learning targets and the unit overview, I don't necessarily want them to be in a bullet format. Let's ask ChatGPT to format this as a table, right? For instance. And once I click send, you'll see that this gets saved in my chat window and ChatGPT starts recreating that part of the document. Now it's not looking to necessarily, adapt that specific part in this instance. It's adapting the whole document, but you can always, if you're not happy with the result here and this is not looking the way that you want it to look, right? Maybe you don't need this whole section in a table format. You can actually see the changes that were applied and even revert to the previous version and restore this version directly from here. So again, this looks very similar to what you may already be using in your day-to-day, But this actually is a lot faster and allows you to create a lot of different content for different learning needs much quicker. All right. So let's say I've created this, and now I want to translate this to again, maybe like we want to use it in Hindi. So now I have this in an English version, I have this in a Hindi version, I can create this in many other different languages. And essentially this does all the work for me. And you can imagine this can save you hours and hours of work if you have to create this content for many different classes. I don't necessarily have to always edit this manually or use the chatbot here. You'll notice that I actually also have a toolkit that I can leverage to make changes to this. For example, if I want to adjust the length of this or the reading level of this, I can use this toolkit, right? Let's say make this a lot shorter. And then if I click send, ChatGPT will apply that edit. And this allows you to make things longer or shorter. You can adjust the reading level. You can add polish to documents, right? If you've made a lot of manual changes and you don't necessarily see now this like almost a one pager. If you made a lot of changes to the document and you haven't necessarily thought through like the formatting, you can use this add final polish tool to clean everything up. And you can also use add emojis to maybe keep the tone a little bit more lighthearted. Once you're done with this document, I can copy it and paste it into a different tool that I may be using. I can download this as a PDF, Microsoft Word Markdown. And I can also share this canvas. We call these documents canvases. I can share this canvas with some other people by creating a link and making it public. So whenever I send this link to somebody else who has access to ChatGPT, they will be able to preview this specific version of the document. If I make any other changes to this document after I've created the link, I will need to create a new link. So again, this gives you a bit more granularity with what versions of the document you want to share with people. But you can imagine this is really, really powerful for different writing tasks. Now, we covered Canvas for writing, but Canvas is also great for coding. And a lot of you may have already thought, how can I make my teaching and classrooms more interactive, right? We've covered so many different features from voice mode and simulations and role plays potentially to Canvas and custom GPTs. But you can also build applications without knowing how to code, right? So within ChatGPT, using the same tool of Canvas, I can actually create different applications. So let's go into a new window, and I'm gonna again invoke Canvas and ask it to create a single page app, and I'm gonna define it to be an HTML file so I can later download it to help practice fractions, percentages, GST word problems for class 8. I define some high-level features, right? I want 10 question variants. I want a reveal hint explain cycle and a simple chart of personal errors. And I want this to be bilingual. So if I prompt this and send it out, you'll see that ChatGPT, similar to what it was doing before, creates a new UI for me. And I can then edit this UI. But instead of writing text, it's actually going to start writing code. And me as a teacher, I may not know how to code, but that's the beauty of using a tool like this, is by just giving it a simple prompt in English or maybe in your own dialect that you may be speaking. It creates the code for me, and similar to what I was doing before, I can then come back and ask it to make edits to the code, right? Maybe make like the application a little bit simpler or more complex, add new features, change colors. And this typically takes a bit of time to write. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into another conversation where I gave it a very similar prompt, and it finished that code. So if I jump into here, you see that over 400, actually over 500 lines of code. I'm a coder. This would probably take me days of work. And I can preview this now in my ChatGPT window. So now I have this application. Let's now test this out, right? So the final price, including 8% GST, is $15.44. Find the base price. Again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not really good with these tasks. So let's say I give it like 1200 as an answer. And if I click check, it says, not quite, you got this wrong, try again. Now, maybe I don't want to try again and, I want to get a hint. It gives me the calculation that I could apply here to, get the final outcome. And I can also use, explain to actually get the answer out of this. So imagine, let's go into a new question, a different question. You can now create these applications for your classroom settings. And you can also share these again as links with your students, with your teachers, so they can access this version of the application within their own ChatGPT interface. What's beautiful about having HTML files is I can actually download this file into my desktop, right? And if I open this file from my desktop as an HTML.
Sorry, I think there's a bit of lag between screen share. It's coming on like 4-5 seconds late. You want to just unshare and reshare your screen? I think it started lagging a few seconds back.
Yeah, of course. Let me reshare that.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna reshare the tab. This is not ChatGPT. This is the HTML file, the canvas that I downloaded. Now, the beauty of this, and the reason that I created an HTML file, is I actually don't need internet access to open this up now. So within ChatGPT, I need internet access, but with the HTML file, I don't. What that means is if you have students that don't necessarily have the same access to internet, they're coming from different backgrounds and they may not necessarily have these resources. By creating these, outputs in HTML format, you can also involve them and make sure that they're getting the same opportunities and teaching assets that everybody else gets. And they can again open this up in their own computer, and they don't need internet access. So I just wanted to highlight that. I'm gonna jump back to my ChatGPT window, right? And I'm gonna actually showcase. So we have a math application. You don't necessarily have to do just math. So let's say I want to look at the music application, and I'm gonna preview this. And we're going to actually play along. So this is an application for Indian classical music for grade 8 music students, right? And I want the features to help students identify raga from other instruments and include audio snippets and also scaffold ear training. So some of you may be music teachers and this may be relevant to you. So again, a different version of the application for a different purpose and a different class. But by bringing these applications into my teaching, I can actually achieve a lot of different things. So number one, we spoke a lot about accessibility and adaptability. The reason we're thinking about AI in education more broadly is because it allows us to tailor and cater to different learning needs. So we can use image generation for visual learners. We can use voice mode for learners that prefer more of a role play situation. And we can create applications like this for specific learning preferences that help us keep everybody engaged. Why does engagement matter? Obviously, we need to do a lot of research to understand the impact of AI on cognitive outcomes. That takes time, and that's going to be longitudinal research. What we do know is AI allows us to create these engaging and interactive materials. And what we do know is when a student is engaged in the classroom, they actually learn a lot more and a lot better because of that level of interactivity and because they're so tuned in. So without even necessarily having like fully fleshed out understanding of how AI may impact learning outcomes, we know that by using these AI tools, we can increase engagement and as such improve those cognitive outcomes for our students. Um, and why does that matter? Let's speak a little bit about statistics. So there's research that proves that by keeping classrooms engaging, we can actually move students up on their learning curve, right? They can go from the 50th percentile to the 60th percentile. So that's quite a significant impact, right? And if we can create all of these different tools and learning assets, for all of these different student needs, you can imagine that you can actually really lift everybody's like outcomes and make sure that everybody's learning to the capability that they have just because they have now access to all of these different things. Gonna make a brief pause here. By the way, I think we may run slightly over time. I hope that's okay.
I think folks that can stay will hopefully stay, Shaikh. So if you'd like to go over, we could. And if it's okay with you, let's take a few live questions. Maybe people can unmute and ask you some live questions as well once you're done with what you have, if time permits.
Yeah. Let's take some questions. You can also come off mute, by the way, if you want to, and ask them.
So I'll pose one question to you, and then if there are folks who want to ask a question, please raise your hand. It's the button in the React tab at the bottom, and if you can raise your hand, I'll invite you to ask your question. There was a question earlier, which I think will be helpful to answer, from Mahima Shah. Can AI be used to enhance critical and logical thinking skills?
Absolutely. I think if anything, AI is the best tool to really hone those skills. Particularly because of some of the things that we covered earlier around critical thinking whenever you do get outputs from AI. But you can imagine in settings like this, and maybe with the example of voice mode that I showed earlier, you don't necessarily focus on just one specific skill set. You don't necessarily, create text materials or slides to promote specific skill set. By bringing, per se, voice mode into your classroom activity and using it as a negotiation partner where AI is sparring with you on different topics, you can actually practice some of the softer skills, right? So that's sort of like debate skills, your critical thinking skills, how you tackle the arguments that AI presents, your negotiation skills, right? You can ask AI to play a role of someone who you need to negotiate with. So those softer skills are also really, really important as we prepare our students for the future, because those are the skills they're going to be applying a lot in their careers. And AI allows us to hone those as well. So I don't think we're necessarily constrained to just one particular skill. We can definitely find ways that we can leverage these tools to promote very specific tools in our students' toolkits.
Wonderful, thanks. One more question, which I think has been a bit of a common theme in the group chat as well as some one-on-one questions to me, is just around creating presentations on topics to engage students, whether this be with some animations or possibly with some videos, and even just creating PowerPoint slides. If you could kind of share some information on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So within ChatGPT, you do have the ability to create different things. So for instance, if I jump back into my platform here, first and foremost, you can create images, right? So I can.
We are seeing the Indian classical musical trainer right now, Sheikh. Is
Oh,
that the tab you're on?
no. So let me reshare my screen again. So you can create images, right? Create an image of a cat, let's say running on a field. And this can have particular styles. I can do this maybe in anime style or retro cartoon style. Let's just use that. And you see that it actually adapts the prompt to fit that stylistic choice. And if I click enter here, this will create the image for me. Now, we can now adapt these images, take them and put them in our slide decks. Within ChatGPT, you will also have access to a tool that we call Agent. They can actually create. Oh, actually, you know what? I don't think our Go subscribers get access to that tool. But with Agent, you can actually create PowerPoints and spreadsheets, and that's part of a higher tier license. And the way that it does create these tools is, again, by using coding capabilities under the hood. So it writes code that creates these spreadsheets and PowerPoints. So you do have these capabilities. I can share some more resources in the chat around how you can leverage these tools. But for different PowerPoint capabilities, I do want to highlight that these are obviously not perfect. Large language models in general are not yet that great at creating decks, but this is a constantly improving capability that we're also investing a lot of our time and effort into, right? So again, it created that image for me, and I can download this. What I can do, let's say if I have a bunch of these images, right? I can ask to, using code, animate this image into a GIF file, right? So just keeping it very, very simple here, because we do get this question a lot. Can I create GIF files using ChatGPT? You can by using code. That being said, if you want it to be a very specific GIF file, you probably need to attach those source inputs to create that GIF a little bit better. Here, it's going to probably take this static image and animate it, because I didn't exactly tell ChatGPT how I want it to be animated. I don't know what that animation is going to look like, but you'll see here it now writes code to create that. Which is why it's able to do this. And then once ready, I will be able to download and showcase it to you.
Okay, back to you, Sheikh. Just in terms of, I know some people need to drop off, are dropping off. So if you want to try and wrap up in the next few minutes, and then we can close out.
Yeah, I pretty much think sort of like we covered all of the main things here. So we covered voice mode, we covered custom GPTs, image generation, canvas for writing and coding. We covered how you can brainstorm with ChatGPT, how you can use it for multilingual settings, how you can use it for different courses and classroom settings, right? So really, the tool is just as powerful as you need it to be, and you don't. The power of this is going to be fully dependent on you. We've created the GIF, by the way, and I just want to showcase it to those of you that are interested. Let me reshare my screen. So if I jump into my screen here, you see now it's created that GIF for me, and you can see this, right? So this is just an animated image. You can create these images in ChatGPT and in Sora.
We're seeing your desktop right now. not the GIF yet.
Oh, did you not see that? Okay,
No, I
let
don't
me
think it came up.
let's see if I can share my tab. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just because I didn't necessarily give it the source images or like the different frames that I would want it to take, but you can see that it can actually create moving images. And you can do the same using our application called Sora, which is much, much better for these types of purposes, text to video, image to video, even video to video. But these capabilities, going back to what I was saying earlier, the sky's the limit, right? If you have an idea and you want to try ChatGPT for it, go ahead, try it. I think that's the best way you can learn the tool. That's the best way you can understand what it can and cannot do. And obviously, as you try, please do share your learnings with your peers and colleagues so that you can promote that collective learning and encourage everybody to be just as apt and fluent with AI. And that's my note takeaway.
Wonderful. Sheikh, we have a couple of hands up. Are you okay if we take 2 questions live as well?
Anyway, we have to come back before 8:20, na?
Yeah, I think somebody needs to mute as well, please. So Dipta Dey, if you'd like to go ahead and please ask your question, and then I'll come to Manju ma'am as well.
Yes, yes. I just wanted to know that if we can save all our search, whatever we are doing from the day one in ChatGPT, is it possible that whatever couple of days, so how can we get it back like that way? Is it possible to save it at the same, means in the same interface in there only? That is my question.
Sorry,
The
I'm
audio
really
is breaking up. I
struggling.
don't know if you got that.
I didn't. I'm really, really struggling to hear the question.
If I understood it partly, I think the question is around if you've done some chats earlier, is there a way to get them back or access them again? I don't know if that's the
Yes,
question.
yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, that is my question. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you might be using you might be using sort of the free version of ChatGPT, which doesn't save the chats. Just make sure that you are using your personal account, and you can see it sort of here. Like if you click here, you can see the email and your conversation history saved under your chats. So every single conversation that I start is going to be recorded here. If you're not seeing that, you're probably using the free version of ChatGPT without having logged in. So just make sure that you're logged in.
And Manju ma'am, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Raghav and Sheikh. It was a lovely, lovely presentation. And I kept asking questions as the presentation was happening. I'm a biology teacher, so asked other questions and it answered pretty well. And it turned me into Dr. Manju as well, which I'm not, right? And it gave me a plan for my academic year 26-27 because we are celebrating 25 years of the school. And I shared that with my team who are not attending the session. And they were flabbergasted that how did she do it? She's given us a whole lot of work for the next year. But a couple of things I wanted to ask was when I go to the settings and it says upgrade to Go for free. And I understand that those of us who are here are going to have the Go version free. Do I go there or is it automatic? I'm using my app on the phone.
So from today, we've done one step better. Go is available for free for everybody in India.
Okay.
If you have an existing free account, and if you go to the web version of ChatGPT or go to chatgpt.com, it will tell you how to access the free version.
All
And
right.
if you're on a phone, especially on Android, on iPhone, it's not live yet. It'll take a few more days. But on Android, if you click on upgrade to go free, it'll also walk you through the process.
Sure.
And you will have 12 months access to Go for free starting today.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to know is the current version of mine doesn't support image formation, is it? The normal version, or because I couldn't generate a logo or get a 3D image of the DNA that I was asking for.
So just maybe make sure that you have this image.
Create image.
Oh, yeah. And if you click it, it will allow you to create those images.
All
So
right.
make sure you have access to that. You should have it on your subscription plan. Go for sure has it. So you will be able to leverage this.
All right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. A suggestion that I wanted was, can we have smaller modules of each application so people can try and play around as well with? Is
Yeah, no,
that
thank you for
possible?
that suggestion. We'll try and see if we can incorporate that. But yeah,
Sure.
thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Sheg, yeah, I'll let you talk through this one and then we can close out.
Yeah, just before you all drop off, I did want to point you to some of the resources that we have available. So first and foremost, we run training webinars like this one quite often, so you can join this and see these live sessions as well. You have access to our academy, which is our enablement platform. And here we have a section specifically for education. So here you can learn how ChatGPT can support you in education. You can understand how you can leverage it as an administrator, as a leader, how you can build GPTs and automate tasks. So this is really, really useful to get to the content that we didn't get to cover. And there's quite a lot of it. We have an educator FAQ, so you can see some of the most commonly asked questions from educators here. And obviously, with regard to your specific licenses, to understand what ChatGPT Go is and what it includes, you can refer to this help doc. I've linked all of these in our chat as well, so please feel free to follow those links and see the information.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sheikh. Just three quick things before we close out. One, we will share a recording of the session. The Arise team would do that. So if you'd like to revisit all of it or parts of it or share it with your colleagues, you can do that. Second, there's a feedback form. Please do fill it out. It'll take you 30 seconds, but we'd really appreciate the feedback. And then thirdly, like I mentioned, ChatGPT Go is available for free to everybody in the country from today. So please do make use of it. It's available for 12 months. And we hope that you will benefit from a combination of this training that we've all gone through and access to ChatGPT Go for free. And thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully. Thank you. Bye for now. Thank you, Sheikh.
Thank you all.